When Nora Bell was born under a blood moon in a thunderstorm, the midwife whispered, "She'll be trouble." Her mother, an exhausted but hopeful woman named Maureen, only chuckled and kissed her baby's brow. Trouble or not, Nora was hers. By the time Nora turned 10, the town of Hartsville, population 1,703 and shrinking, had already labeled her that Bell girl. It wasn't just that she spoke out of turn or skipped Sunday school to climb rusted train cars behind the grain mill. It was the fire in her eyes, a defiance that refused to bend, no matter who tried to tame it. Her father, a stern man who had served 2 tours overseas, believed discipline could hammer the rebellion out of her. Couldn't. Her mother believed in love and soft words and prayers whispered at night. That didn't work either. By 16, Nora had a record at the local sheriff's office, shoplifting cigarettes, trespassing at the old quarry, and getting caught joyriding in a car that wasn't hers. When her mother cried in court, Nora stared blankly ahead, the rings under her eyes darker than the bruises on her knuckles from a fight at school. She didn't cry. Not anymore. There was a boy once, Elijah, with ink-stained fingers and a voice like gravel. He read poetry and told her she was like a wildflower growing in the ashes of something burned. She fell hard and fast. But he left like everyone else, chasing dreams in California. She never told him she was pregnant. She never had the chance to. That fall, Nora disappeared. For months, nobody knew where she'd gone. Rumors spread. Some said she joined a traveling circus. Others said she was dead in a ditch somewhere. The truth was far simpler. She hitched rides west, took odd jobs at diners and gas stations, and eventually found herself in a shelter for runaway girls outside Denver. There, in a quiet, sterile room, she gave birth to a boy she named Reed. She stayed 6 months, long enough to fall in love with her son, but not long enough to believe she was good for him. One snowy morning, she wrapped him in a blue blanket, kissed his soft forehead, and placed him in the arms of a nurse named April, who had once told her she'd always wanted a child but couldn't have one. Nora left before the sunrise, her boots crunching in the snow. Years passed. She lived everywhere. Kansas City, Salt Lake, even a stint in a mining town in Nevada. She bartended, waitressed, sang at seedy bars. She dyed her hair red, then black, then shaved it all off. Her knuckles stayed bruised. Her eyes tired. But something changed when she hit 30. Maybe it was the overdose scare in a motel outside Reno. Or the way she stared at her reflection afterward and didn't recognize herself. Maybe it was the letter she found in her coat pocket months later, written by April, addressed to Nora wherever you are, with a photo of a 5-year-old boy with her same storm-gray eyes. Whatever it was, it broke something open inside her. Not in a way that hurt, but in a way that healed. She went back to Denver. She didn't try to take Reed back. She didn't tell him who she was. But she got a job nearby. She saw him once, from a distance, playing soccer in a park. He laughed, loud and wild and free. She wept in silence behind the bleachers. Eventually, she enrolled in community college. Took classes in literature and social work. She wanted to help girls like her. Wayward girls. Wildflowers in the ashes. By 40, Nora Bell had a degree, a small apartment filled with second-hand books, and a job counseling teens at a shelter much like the one where she gave birth. She wore a necklace with a small silver charm, an engraved letter R. Sometimes when she walked home through the city, people would nod at her, kids would smile. She still had a sharp tongue and a steel spine, but her eyes were gentler now. She was still trouble, sure. But the kind that saves you, not the kind that breaks you. And sometimes on her birthday, she'd light a candle and whisper to the night, "Thank you for letting me find the road back." Because even a wayward girl can find her way home, especially when she builds it herself. Nora Bell didn't believe in second chances. Not really. She believed in hard-earned change, in painful growth, in pulling yourself out of the pit with bleeding hands. But she didn't believe you got another shot at things like motherhood. So when April found her one gray morning outside the school fence, coffee in hand, watching Reed from a careful distance, Nora froze. "You can come closer, you know," April said. She was older now, with a few streaks of silver in her dark hair. He knows who you are. Nora blinked. No, he doesn't. April nodded. Not everything. But he knows there's someone. He asked about you, why his middle name is Bell. Why he doesn't look like me. Silence cracked between them. I thought. Nora began, but the words dissolved on her tongue. You thought if you stayed away, he'd be safe. April's voice softened. You were wrong. He's safe because of you. But he's ready to meet the woman who gave him life. The first meeting was clumsy. Reed, now almost 10, wore a faded hoodie and had a cautious but curious stare. They sat at a diner booth, pancakes growing cold between them. Nora's hands trembled as she stirred her coffee. You're the one who used to be wild, Reed said. Nora laughed, sharp and startled. Still am. A little. He grinned. I figured. They met again the next week. Then the next. They talked about books and music and why he likes skateboarding more than soccer now. He didn't ask why she gave him up. Not at first. But when he did, it wasn't angry. Were you scared? Yes, she said honestly. I was more scared of failing you than of losing you. Nora's life grew more complicated, but fuller. She stayed close, part of Reed's world, but never intrusive. April welcomed her with quiet strength, and together, the two women created something that didn't have a name. It wasn't friendship. It wasn't co-parenting. It was an alliance forged by love, heartbreak, and a child who deserved both of them in different ways. But ghosts didn't disappear just because you buried them. One evening, Nora got a letter with no return address. Just a few lines of barely legible scrawl. You're not the only one with regrets. Come find me if you want to know the rest. Elijah. Elijah. The name crashed through her like thunder. Had been 15 years. Last she heard, he was chasing music in LA. Then vanished. April told her to let it go. Reed said nothing, sensing something fragile shifting in her. But Nora packed a bag. She found Elijah in Santa Fe, running a used record shop and caring for his ailing mother. His hair was silver at the edges. His eyes still tired but kind. You never told me, he said after she explained. I would have stayed. I didn't want you to, she replied. You weren't ready. They didn't rekindle anything. Not romantically. That part of their story had burned out long ago. But they talked. They wept. They remembered who they used to be. And they forgave each other. Nora left Santa Fe the next morning, lighter than she had in years. Back in Denver, things continued to shift. Reed was older now, 12 then 13, taller than her, funnier, with a sarcasm that mirrored her own. They went hiking together. He asked for her opinion on his poems. At 16 he asked the hardest question. Do you regret it? Giving me away? Nora's throat tightened. Every day, she said. And never. At the same time. He nodded like he understood more than he could say. Years passed. Reed graduated high school with honors. Nora stood in the back row of the gym, tears in her eyes, heart in her throat. He found her afterward in the parking lot and pulled her into a long, silent hug. Thank you, he said. For what? For being brave enough to leave. And brave enough to come back. Nora Bell eventually published a memoir called Ashes and Wildflowers. It became a quiet bestseller in women's shelters and among at-risk youth. She kept working at the center, helping girls who reminded her of the girl she used to be. She still drank too much coffee. Still cursed when she stubbed her toe. Still wore boots too worn for city sidewalks. But she smiled more. Laughed easier. She never stopped being wayward. Just found a way to make it her strength. And when people asked who she was, she never said counselor or author or even mother. She'd just smile and say, someone who made it out and decided to go back in for the others.